Sometimes it's better to be known for one's enemies. That is a line that has stuck with me for most of my life, is strangely enough. And the idea of it's not always about the side you take, but the side you're against. So, and there's a strange bit of meaning to that. There's a strange bit of symbolism to that. It is the last line spoken by Blitzwing in the original Generation 1 cartoon. And it's the culmination of a character who really shouldn't be as interesting and fascinating as he is. So I kind of wanted to just do this video and just kind of get this out there because I have said many times, my favorite Decepticon, especially when we're talking Generation 1 Decepticons, is Blitzwing. And that's not just like a design or a toy-centric thing. Now, design-wise, I do really like Blitzwing. I do think that the tan and the purple work really well. I like the yellow head, oddly enough, though it's kind of sticks out. But like for a Decepticon, doesn't it just seem like the perfect thing to do is to have a tank mode and a jet mode? You've got the best in land and air warfare built in. Doesn't that just seem like, why don't all Decepticons do this? This just seems like such a perfect thing to do. And it's two extremely different toys, so of course the toys are fantastic. Unless it's the original Generations Blitzwing, and then your toy is kind of a mess, but it's besides the point. What we have here, though, is not about toy design or toy engineering. My love of Blitzwing comes from his portrayal in the cartoon, and not just any portrayal. Because the first time we really get a good look at his character, it's in Triple Takeover, and there he's just a dumb, power-grubbing Decepticon. He pulls off a coup with Astro Train to assume command of the Decepticons, and actually manages to do a few things that does actually get a bunch of Autobots captured. It's more than I can say for some of Megatron's schemes. So he didn't do too bad, but it's pretty much just a treacherous Decepticon wanting power and control type character. No, Blitzwing doesn't get interesting until the Season 3 opener, Five Faces of Darkness. Now, Five Faces of Darkness is kind of an infamous thing now because it was one of the ACOM series of episodes, and ACOM was just notoriously terrible as an animation studio. And for Transformers in particular, if they got if a character just showed up that was supposed to be dead, if a combiner was shown side by side with a character that formed his limb, if characters appeared completely off color, if you saw a Shockwave flying by in Constructicon colors, that was ACOM. That was their doing. If you saw something that was off model, or you saw the weird extra bright blue or light blue or white stripe on Rodimus Prime's pelvis that does not work and is not part of his character design, that's ACOM. That's their doing. So it's kind of a widely regarded this is one of the worst animation episodes in all of Transformer history, and it kind of is. But it's also incredibly important because it immediately follows the movie. It shows the revival of Galvatron. It shows the reformation of the Decepticons, the introduction of Quintessons as a secondary antagonist, the origins of Transformers in the original animated universe. It has a lot. It sets a lot in stone for Transformers lore. But I think because of that, a few other elements kind of get glossed over. And for me, that is Blitzwing's portrayal. So the big thing in this one is the Decepticons are completely out of power. They have lost the war. They have slinked off to this husk of a planet with barely enough energon to survive. And at some point, Cyclonus comes back and goes and says, okay, we're going to go off, donate a little energon and we're going to go get Galvatron. And they go off and leave. Decepticons get fed up waiting. And that's when Quintessons show up with loads of energon and an offer. We feed you everything you need, and you just go kill the Autobots. Simple as that, right? So they basically take command of the Decepticons. Except for the one Decepticon who voted to stay and wait for Galvatron. That's Blitzwing. Because for some reason, Blitzwing was suspicious of the Quintessons. For some reason, he knew about the Quintessons, but that was never actually explained. And that, again, makes him a little bit more interesting. It's like, how did this guy know not to trust the Quintessons when literally no other Decepticons had any idea that they were not to be trusted? Don't know. Doesn't matter. Blitzwing was the only one who stayed on Char, and was the only one there to greet Galvatron when he returned. And that kind of endears Blitzwing to Galvatron. He kind of becomes his left-hand man. If Cyclonus is the right-hand man, here's Blitzwing as the left-hand man. So they go off together, they regain the Decepticons under Galvatron's control. Galvatron is now allured by the Quintessons' offer of the Decepticon Matrix of Leadership, which doesn't exist. It's not a thing. At least it wasn't a thing then. But Galvatron wants it. So Galvatron goes off to Cybertron. They have this huge combat, this huge battle on Cybertron, and at some point Blitzwing goes back up to deliver a report to the Quintessons and finds out the whole thing's a ruse, and they're going to throw the master kill switch in the center of Cybertron to completely shut off every Transformer. Okay, so we go back to Galvatron. Galvatron is power hungry at this point, doesn't believe Blitzwing, literally bashes him away, tells him to go tell the Autobots. Blitzwing does just that. This is where Blitzwing starts to get more interesting, because he's willing to put aside the current battle and the current war because all Transformers are in danger. And of course, he's in danger as well, but he's not going gallivanting off himself. He's not trying to get any Decepticons like Astrotrain or someone who would know and trust him a little bit more to go with him. No, he's actually going straight to Rodimus Prime and begging for help, because he knows how serious this is, and he needs to tackle it. He needs this handled, or everyone is doomed. He's putting the good of all Transformers ahead of personal biases. And that does earn Rodimus Prime Blitzwing's respect for trusting him. But just as he's making that offer to join the Autobots, this is Galvatron showing up, blasting him out of the way, and throwing the switch because he thinks that is where the Matrix is hidden. Shenanigans happens. Quintessons get run off. Rodimus and Galvatron are about to fight again, and this is Blitzwing. This battle ends now, or I shall write its conclusion. And he draws his gun against Galvatron. It was his foolishness that nearly destroyed every single Transformer, and Blitzwing is no longer willing to follow him. Sometimes it's better to be known for one's enemies. And that is where Blitzwing's story ends, but it wasn't supposed to end there. We know that Octane took over the rest of Blitzwing's story. It was supposed to be an ongoing thing throughout Season 3. And Season 3 actually was really good about having long-running story threads. It's why Season 3 doesn't get enough credit, because they actually tried to write long stories in Season 3. So it was supposed to go to Blitzwing, but it went to Octane because Hasbro said, nope, we have a new toy and we have to incorporate him to sell him at stores. You have to use Octane. So Octane substituted Blitzwing's part of the story, which is why Octane just randomly showed up in an episode buddy-buddy with the Autobots. Really weird. And then we know what Octane's story was. He started having, power-grubbing schemes of his own, ended up screwing over Galvatron in the worst way, and then got bullied back into the Decepticons at the end. And so That's basically Octane's story. But because it went to Octane, that's not what happened to Blitzwing. As far as the original G1 canon goes, Blitzwing remained neutral, and for the most part, just never really reappeared unless it was an animation error in a crowd shot or in Headmasters, where he was part of Decepticon crowds, but again chalked up to animation and errors in canon. Because we remember that, like, Headmasters had characters from the dead pop up. Ironhide popped up in Headmasters. And the Japanese continuity didn't really account for the movie ever. Because even as far as Victory, Wheeljack was showing up with lines. He was not even a background character. He was just there as like a support character. So you have a few little glitches where Blitzwing shows up as a Decepticon again, but as far as canonical appearances go, he never went back to the Decepticons and he never officially joined the Autobots. To my knowledge, it made him the first neutral Cybertronian we ever really got to see. And I think that's an incredibly cool thing. I think that makes him a much more fascinating character because he never went back. Because he never joined the Autobots. He was just the first Transformer I saw that was just done with the war. And stayed that way. And I think that's fascinating. And they never play to that. Blitzwing shows up from time to time, but they never really go with that version of the character, even though that's what the character, even by accident, ended up being. And that's such a missed opportunity. There's such good story you could tell there about a factionless Blitzwing who carries a vendetta against the Decepticons, but can't let go of those beliefs enough to join the Autobots. You could have something magical. No one really takes advantage of that. He's just a generic Decepticon in most of the comic books I've seen since, and the only appearance in animation since was in Animated, where he was a gimmicky Decepticon. It's unfortunate, but you know what? As far as G1 goes, I love that incarnation of Blitzwing, and I love that that's how his story ended. And it's probably because I loved Five Faces of Darkness as a kid, and I watched it like religiously. But yeah, for anyone who ever wondered, that is why. Blitzwing is absolutely my favorite G1 Decepticon, because he ended up being incredibly unique when he wasn't supposed to be. You know what? Sometimes the best heroes are made from those who don't expect to be heroes. So, that is my tale. If you want to tell me your thoughts on Blitzwing, probably not as loving as mine, but please feel free to share them, or just tell me what your favorite Decepticon is. I'm sure everyone's got a different one. So, hopefully you enjoyed this little bit of rambling, because there's always something else for me to ramble about, and I will see you the next time I do.